بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought upon us this blessed month, the month of mercy and forgiveness, freedom from the fire of Jahannam, and the month of freeing ourselves from our own weaknesses, shortcomings, washing away mistakes and sins, getting rid of bad habits, behaviors, attitudes, and starting life all over again. Essentially, that's what Ramadan is offering us. Now, the path to getting there, it is a difficult path, or at least it seems that way from a distance. But once you start walking on that path, you realize that you're not going to walk on this path by yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to help you walk on it. That's why the hadith of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam tells us that Allah azza wa jalla is saying that if a person comes to me a little bit, I come to him this much. So if he comes to me by one hand span, Allah says, I come to him by an arm span. And like this, a little bit of effort on our behalf is rewarded by immense results from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He says that if he comes walking to me, I come running to him. So this is that mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is going to get us to all of these destinations that we think about, that we are sometimes motivated to achieve, that we are sometimes trying also to achieve, but we get hindered. So Ramadan is the month when we are able to focus on this more than any other part of the year. So let's give ourselves that chance. Let's not allow ourselves to be pulled back by our own weaker tendencies. And keep in mind that everyone who has walked on this path was a human being just like you. Whether it was the Sahaba, it was the Tabi'een, Atba'u Tabi'een, the great Muhaddithin, Mufassirin, the great Awliyaullah, they were all human beings just like us. They started out as just simple human beings, most of them in just a regular family, most of them in societies that had all kinds of different environments, and they committed themselves to making those changes, to taking those steps, and they held themselves to it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you the asbab, the means of changing. When we were growing up, like Brother Fadil was mentioning yesterday, we didn't have all of these resources. We did not have Islamic schools. We did not have scholars. We did not have fancy speeches. We hardly had masjids, hardly. A community that had a masjid was it was considered to be very well established because they had a masjid. Today, masjids abound, Islamic schools, teachers, scholars, speakers. Very easy to get a hold of, very easy to access. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easier for this generation. There was a time when I was just like one of you children over here, except without the uniform, because we didn't have uniforms. And just thinking the things that kids think, and wondering what I'm going to be when I grow up, what's that going to look like, and all kinds of different goals and ambitions would come. But then there was a time in my life when I saw the conditions of my peers, the people my age. And At some point, people thought that maybe I'm more religious or I'm more practicing, even though I wasn't really. But they got that impression because I was praying and I was trying to get people to come and pray, and we had managed to get a room in the school, and we used to make a little bit of broken effort. But people thought that this person must be very religious or maybe very knowledgeable. And they started coming to me with their problems. And I wasn't the person who was going to help them because I was the same age as them. But sometimes people just need someone to listen to them. They just need a shoulder. They need someone who's going to comfort them and tell them that everything's going to be okay. And maybe I was that person for a lot of people. But the more people shared the problems that were happening at home, the problems in their lives, it created a very deep disturbance inside me, a very profound disturbance. It's something that made me restless, and it made me genuinely worried about what's going to happen. What's going to happen to this generation of Muslims, and what's going to happen to the Muslims afterwards. Because what people in my time were going through was terrible. It was terrible. And the environment was terrible. So either I go down my own path, I build my own career, and make as much money as I possibly can, just like everyone else is thinking of doing. And I was well positioned to do all of that. Or you have the youth that you're growing up with, you're seeing, and then many more generations to come after you, maybe you do something for them. So it was these thoughts that I bounced in between, back and forth for almost a whole year. But I had given myself a deadline that by the end of my grade 10, I was going to make a final decision and do something to determine my path for once and for all. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put two things in my heart. The first thing is that before I can help people, I need to learn the deen myself. I need to learn the deen, and I need to build myself, and I need to really collect the things that I'm going to need. Knowledge, practice, experience. And the second thing I realized is that I'm not going to do this in my home environment. I can't be that person that I aspire to be, living amongst the people that I live, doing the things that I do, interacting with that environment. It's not going to happen. I have to find a much more powerful environment, a much greater environment. Otherwise, I'm going to be just like everyone else and do the exact same thing that everyone else is doing. And that's where I met a lot of opposition. Nobody agreed with this crazy idea of mine of going somewhere else to become something. They thought it was the most ridiculous thing they'd ever heard of. In fact, people that were very close to me, they used to say that you probably just want to run away from home. But that was not the case. I needed a better environment. I needed those resources. I needed those people that were going to educate me, that were going to teach me. And I needed people around me who thought the same way. And that's what got me started on this path. In this beautiful month, one of the things we will try to do is share with you little snapshots, very short, based on the time that we have, about people in the past and their journeys, and how they became great people, and some of the great attributes that they acquired along that path. And we'll try to cover a whole bunch of different areas. It won't be about the same thing. And it won't be about the same generation of people. It'll be across many generations, across several centuries, across men and women, and it'll be across a broad spectrum of areas of life. Hopefully that will inspire us to also think about, I can be something like that. Maybe that's what I can be. Maybe I can aspire to be like that. I'm not there right now, but I can try. And to be honest, that's one of the things that motivated me to go learn knowledge. When I started hearing the stories and the little bits and pieces of the biographies of great ulama and great great Muslims of the past, that's actually what got me really thinking and got me motivated. So we'll start this series and we'll continue it through the month, and hopefully this will be a means of inspiration for all of us and bringing some great changes in our lives.